Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Raw Relationships Are Work. I'm Tara, and today we are going to be talking about a relationship that you may not think about very much, but it's definitely one that has a huge impact on our lives. And that one is the relationship that you have with your doctor. Some of us grew up with the same family doctor from the time we were in cornrows or pigtails all the way up into adulthood. They've known us through fevers, strep throat, sports injuries, all kinds of physicals, everything. That history can make us feel safe. It can feel comforting, but for some of us, it can also feel limiting. Because here's the problem. You might find yourself holding back. You don't tell the whole truth. You leave out the uncomfortable details. Maybe you're embarrassed or you don't want to disappoint them. Or maybe without realizing it, you still feel like that little kid on the exam table with your mom doing all the talking for you. And if that's you, you are not alone in that type of dynamic. Here's a letter. Dear Tara, I've had the same doctor for as long as I can remember. They've known me since I was a kid, and I do trust them. But as I've gotten older, I find myself holding back. I don't always share the whole truth about my habits or my concerns. I don't want them to think less of me or to be disappointed. I know that this isn't good, but I can't shake that discomfort. Is it time to move on, or is this just a part of being an adult? That, guys, is such a real tension, and it's more common than I think we like to admit. Having the same doctor for years, whether even if okay, so even if that relationship starts as an adult, and you've come to know your doctor, whatever, but that kind of relationship, it comes with layers of history, right? On the one hand, they may know you better than anybody. They may know your family history, definitely your medical chart, your personality. But on the other hand, that kind of history can make it harder to step fully into your adult self in that room, especially here I'm talking about if you've been with them, since you were a kid, right? And it's not always about the doctor. Sometimes it can be about us. We still see ourselves as that child patient, answering the simple questions while our parents fill in the rest. But now that we're adults with real, sometimes awkward health concerns, it can feel intimidating to lay it all out there. And, let's be honest, sometimes it's not just embarrassment, it's pride. If you've always been seen as the healthy one, the responsible one, it can feel like you're letting somebody else down by admitting to struggles with your habits or with your mental health or with your lifestyle. But here's the truth, and you guys know I like my hard truths. It is this, though: you can't get the best care if you're not being honest. If you're holding back information, your doctor is making decisions with only part of the story. And that's really not fair to them. It's certainly not fair to you. And in some instances, it can also be very dangerous. Think about it this way. Would you really expect somebody to cook a meal, at least a good meal, with only half the ingredients, right? Or building a house with only part of a blueprint? That's exactly what happens when you keep secrets from your doctor nowadays in screening questions. They ask you about your smoking habits. They ask you about your drinking habits, about your sexual activity. And sometimes those types of questions, they can be embarrassing to answer or uncomfortable to answer. But that doesn't mean that it's safe or smart to lie about them, to sugarcoat it, to hide that, because they need all the information. Your doctor is not there to judge you. They're there to help you. But they can't do their job if you won't let them see the full picture. But there's a flip side. I said that they're not there to judge, but if you do feel judged, if you do feel shamed or dismissed, that's worth paying attention to as well, because that's not the kind of environment where honesty thrives. And if you can't be real with your doctor because of the way they respond, then maybe it's time to ask whether this is the right provider for you. Sometimes the healthiest move is finding somebody who sees you as a whole person, someone who sees you as you are, not some idealized, romanticized version of what you were, what they wish you would be, or what you wish you could be. And here's where the relationship piece really comes in. A healthy patient doctor relationship isn't about one person giving orders and the other person just nodding along. It should feel like a partnership. Yeah, your doctor has the expertise, but you bring something just as valuable. You're bringing your lived experience of your own body and your own life. And you are the one who knows your habits. You know your pain. You know your stress, your family history. Together, those two perspectives create the best plan of care for you. So if you feel like you're just, someone who goes in there and you succumb to authority, right? You're doing what you're told without question. It may be time to rethink how you show up in that space. You should never feel afraid to ask questions. You should never feel embarrassed to say, I don't understand. And you should always, 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 always feel the freedom to advocate for yourself, no matter who that person is, whether you've known them for 10 minutes or 10 years. And, some people are uncomfortable with that. They think that it's making them seem like they're being difficult or challenging, but it's not. It's making you responsible. You deserve to be heard. You deserve clarity. And you should never walk out of an appointment feeling silenced, regretful, or small. And as a parent, one of the best ways to set your children up for healthy relationships with doctors is to give them practice speaking up while they're still young. It's so easy to answer all the questions for your kids. You know their symptoms, you know their routines, and you want to protect them from awkward conversations. But that doctor's office, that exam room, is actually the perfect place to start teaching agency. Encourage your kids to describe how they're feeling in their own words. Let them answer when the doctor asks, where does it hurt? Let them answer, or how long have you been sick? Invite them to ask their own questions, even if it takes longer, if they struggle to get it out. It helps them learn that their voice matters. Because when kids grow up knowing how to use their voice in that setting, if children grow familiar with speaking up about their bodies and about their needs, it won't feel so intimidating to do it later as adults. They won't see their doctor just as an authority figure. They won't be afraid of doctors. They'll see them as partners. And that mindset can carry into so many other relationships too. But, back to that, the thing we started talking about. What if, as, that young adult, that adult, older, younger, whatever, you just can't get past it? Sometimes, despite your best effort, that discomfort really never goes away. You find yourself avoiding honesty, editing your answers, or holding back questions. If that's the case, though, yeah, it may be time to find a new provider. And I know you might feel like you're being disloyal or something, but it's not that. It's not that, it's not disloyalty. And it doesn't mean that your doctor has failed you or done something wrong. It just means that maybe you've outgrown that relationship and you need somebody who you feel comfortable being your full adult self with. Your health is too important to compromise because of embarrassment or old patterns or fear or whatever that obstacle is. And so you have to know that regardless of how long-standing that relationship is, how comfortable you are with your doctor, how much you may care for them and you feel they care for you, you always have the right, the freedom to walk away when something isn't working. Matthew chapter 10, verse 14 says, "And if anyone will not receive you or listen to your words, shake off the dust from your feet when you leave that house or town." And this is telling us that not every relationship will be a good fit. If someone isn't listening, if they're dismissing your words or making you feel small, or even if that is simply coming from you and maybe not them, if that is how you feel in that relationship, you don't have to keep forcing it, right? And that's any relationship, including your healthcare one. Sometimes the best step you can do is to recognize when it's time to leave and to seek out a space where your voice is heard, where you feel empowered and that your needs are respected. So it's more than just about you need to try harder to be honest. It's also about sometimes, even when we are honest or what have you, because there are different levels, right? If that honesty isn't met with respect or you feel that it isn't, you feel that you can't be, then you have permission, a responsibility even to move on. So let's think about this for a second. If you're finding anything in this that is familiar to you, a discomfort that you felt or a relationship that you've been questioning when it comes to, let's say, your healthcare provider. And honestly, this could be anywhere, but I'm talking specifically about this. Maybe there are some questions you can ask, right? Some things to reflect on. But be, what's one thing I've been holding back from my doctor? Is my hesitation about them or about me? What would change if I said it anyway? Am I truly honest with my doctor, or do I hold back out of fear or embarrassment or another reason? Do I see myself as a partner in my healthcare or just as a passive patient? If I'm a parent, how am I helping my children learn to speak up and advocate for themselves? Is this a relationship I can grow in, or one that I need to release and start fresh elsewhere? Those are important things to ask yourself. So, all that to say, your relationship with your doctor, like every other important relationship in your life, is work. It takes honesty, it takes trust, and sometimes it takes change. If you can't talk about your real concerns, your real habits or struggles, then your health suffers. And if you can't shake that discomfort, if you can't handle the maturity needed for that kind of openness, then it may be better to find a provider you feel comfortable being honest with. And if you have a doctor who will tell you the truth and receive your truth, that's somebody that's worth holding on to, but only if you can give them that trust in return. So here's an action step because I like my action steps for whenever you can put this into place. At your next appointment, ask one question you might normally hold back. And if you're a parent, encourage your child to ask or answer at least one question for themselves at their next visit. Because whether you're 6, 16, or 60, your voice matters. And when you learn to use it, your care and your confidence only gets better. This is raw. Relationships are work because they are, and you and your health are worth it. Bye.